The following is a presentation of Surprise Church. El siguiente programa es la presentación de la iglesia Surprise.
Everyone has 86,400 seconds every day. No one is busier than anyone else. We all have the exact same commodity of time. It's how do we choose to occupy ourselves during that 86,400 second day. We can call it busy or we can call it something else, but how do we not go through our lives missing out on what God has for us because we're quote-unquote too busy? And so if you have missed so far any of the messages, we've got them online and on our phone app. You can download our app and just kind of peek right away at them if you want to after church today. But I would encourage you, this is an important series. It's been important for me, and I hope it's something that you sense in our culture is a critical need of how do we manage our time in a culture that's kind of spiraling out of control. Whether you think about national debt or simply consumer choices, there's an exponential rate of change that we're surrounded by that we have to make conscious decisions of how to not be swept away with it. And so today we're going to talk about kind of mission as our last step to this series. We introduced it last week. How many of you have ever been to the store called IKEA in the Twin Cities? How many of you have come home with more in your car from IKEA than you planned before you went there? IKEA is a kind of a Swedish furniture, I guess is the best way, store that's made to be not super high end. It's not like you're going to Zimmerman's or anything like that, but it's decent looking stuff, a little trendy, sleek, and it's do it yourself. I learned, which is dangerous for me. I think they've gotten better at this, but the directions at IKEA used to be terrible. And so I would just dread going there when we needed a desk or something because you could buy, everything was like, this is cheap. Oh, because I have to put together circuit boards on my own and figure out how this lamp actually works. And so I'd go to IKEA and I'd come home and I'd have these directions and I'd get done with the English part of the directions. I don't know how this works. So I would actually flip to the Japanese and like, okay, is there something here I can use that's going to help me because I don't get it? And I'd flip to the French and I'm like, I don't get this. I think they've gotten better because of their mission statement. Their mission statement is to make everyday life better for our customers. And so they pay attention when customers like me said, dude, this is not working. And so as far as I know, they have less and less words and more simple pictures, guy-centric, in their directions to be able to make life better for their customers, both in terms of the way that you're supposed to assemble the products and the kind of products they make. So if you're an employee in IKEA, you get up and go to the work every day and they tell you that this is what's important to us. You should work here if it is important to you, and you shouldn't if it's not. How about this? McDonald's. Did you know that this was their mission? To be our customers' favorite place and way to eat. Think about that the next time you're driving down the freeway stuffing fries in your mouth. McDonald's is getting what they wanted. Or going through the drive-thru, ordering extra chicken nuggets and just wiping the grease off your chin as your arteries harden. They want to be the favorite place to eat and the favorite way to eat. And I'm not sure what that means because most of the time I eat McDonald's, I'm in a hurry and it's not like a sit down, enjoy yourself meal, but whatever they mean. And then they have in their mission statement a plan to win so that it's not just a mission that just sits on a shelf, but they actually have, here's our plan to win, to accomplish this mission around the world. And so they get very specific and very detailed about how they go about being our customer's favorite place and way to eat. So if you go to a McDonald's in Europe, it's very, very different in France than it is in America. They do things differently because they want to win in France in a contextual way, and that looks different there than here. Nordstrom. Anybody shop at Nordstrom before? No. Two? Okay. Evidently, we like IKEA better than Nordstrom. Okay, good. Nordstrom works relentlessly to give customers the most compelling shopping experience possible. So those of you who've been to Nordstrom, did you walk out and say, wow, that was a compelling shopping experience? I don't know. I hope so. That's what their goal is. They want you to walk out compelled. And that's what they say. They want to get their customers out of, or their employees out of bed in the morning. Here's a good one, Amazon.com. I don't know if you're like me, but we get a box almost every day from UPS, from Amazon. We get our groceries from Amazon. We get just anything I order for Surprise that's got equipment for our band. We send it through Amazon. 2-day shipping with Amazon Prime. I feel like I'm giving a commercial for them, but it's good stuff. Here's their philosophy. Their mission is to be Earth's most customer-centric company, where people can find and discover anything they want to buy online. My sister works for a company out of Sweden called Assa Abloy. It's a huge conglomerate, and they own her division called HID Global. Chances are, if you have a badge that you scan to get into your building, it says HID Global on it. Her job for HID Global is to be the director of customer centricity, modeled after the immaculate way that Amazon creates an experience for customers that's so simple and user-friendly online. So they have created a position to help my sister travel all over the world to help their company be more like the user-friendly company that Amazon has presented itself. And Amazon uses that as a mission focus. They don't just want to sell, they don't just want to make money, they want to be incredibly consumer-centric. They want people feeling like this was designed with me in mind. Google. Anybody not use Google almost every day? I mean, this is like a part of life almost, unless you're an iPhone user, and then you don't. But I mean, most of the rest of the world does. And Google says that here's what we want to do. We want to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So the amount of information in the world doubles in this alarming rate of time. There is more information in an issue of the New York Times than a person living in the 1700s in England would encounter in their lifetime. And so data from all the picture memory on your phone to emails that get stored in a database to social media posts that just keep going, it's all stored somewhere. It's all organized somehow. And all the files that we save on the Google Drive are stored carefully and organized in such a way to make it manageable. They realize that information is the key to the future. How do we organize it, store it, access it, management? And so Google has this mission statement that's got a laser beam-like focus to, we want to make this accessible and useful. So what does Google's page look like? What's the color that you see when you look at Google's page? White. Look at that. Now look how simple that is. Compare that to one of their competitors, MSN. Google, MSN. Google, MSN. New England Patriots, Minnesota Vikings. All right, give me when you look at this slide, give me a word that just jumps out at you. What do you feel when you look at that? Busy, complicated. What else? Messy, sloppy, busy, crazy, confused, overwhelming. Now, what do you feel like when you look at that page? Simple, tight, easy, therapeutic. Makes you want to hit the button, I'm feeling lucky. I've never hit that. I'm a little worried that it'll go somewhere kinky. Lucky and internet usually are a bad combination, so I'm not going there. I'm just not going there. I've never hit the I feel lucky button. MSN actually in 2014 did a redo of its page because they said, well, we want to be more like Google. And the page that they created is even more complicated than this. It's got more information and it scrolls down endlessly. You can't even find the bottom of it. Do you know why they're so complicated? It's because they have divided out in their company different departments dedicated who own space on that page. There are people whose jobs depend on having space full of their information. And so even if MSN wanted to, they could not simplify as simple as Google is because they are already committed to being unsimple and having no focus. It's true with companies and it's true in life. Many of us go through life looking like this. We just live without margin. We do not just as much as we possibly can, but we go past that point and live what we've discussed throughout the series on a state of overload. Having no margin left for life, rest, relationships, and just emotional, spiritual, social health that you require as a human being. Most of us live without margin, without a space in our life for the things that truly do matter. We go through life like MSN. Nothing against this website. I'm sure some people use it. But when you lack a specific focus for what's important and what guides you, you end up looking like this. And that's what we're going to talk about today. 2 Timothy chapter 2. Listen to these words because I think they're really, really convicting to people who live in a culture like ours. Paul is writing to this young man who's trying to lead in a church in kind of a rural part of present-day Turkey. And Timothy didn't really have a father that he could rely on for faith. And so he kind of is really like an orphan spiritually. And Paul has kind of taken him under his wing and really said, look, I want to be there for you. So he called Timothy my dear son. And I'm like your father. And so he's telling Timothy, I want you to join me in suffering. Don't just say, I like Jesus, or I go to this church, I attend that church. I say, I want you to join me in suffering for this Savior. He's worth facing adversity and going against the grain of culture for. Join me in suffering like a good soldier, military language of Jesus Christ. No one serving as a soldier, so now he's teasing out this metaphor. No one serving as a soldier gets entangled in civilian affairs, but rather tries to please his commanding officer. Similarly, anyone who competes as an athlete does not receive the victor's crown except by competing according to the rules. So if you're a soldier and you are in Afghanistan or Iraq or a place that we're trying to relate to around the world and hopefully bring peace to or have tried in the past with varying degrees of success, and you're there and you have a mission and you're in uniform, and then you just go to a restaurant and just sit down and then start playing cards with somebody. And then take your helmet off and put your gun down and go to the market, get some yams, go buy a new pair of shoes, walk down the street, play a ball game with some kids, and just start getting tangled up in things that if you're on mission you wouldn't do. None of the things are bad, but if you don't really focus on what they're there for, you can lose sight of it and get into real trouble. If you're in a sport and you're not really attentive to the rules of the game, whether you're an athlete using steroids or simply cheating on one level or another, or like many of our athletes who had all the right things going for them, but they got involved in something stupid on the side, and it just destroyed their career. They threw it all away because of something that they at the very least could have waited until after their career. They didn't really focus on what they were about. There's a story in the Civil War. I don't know if you knew this, but baseball was a massive thing during the Civil War. Like, the players would play baseball in their spare time. Did you know this? And so it was called base back then. They didn't have the ball to it yet. Evidently, it hadn't calmed down together. And it was it could be a good thing for morale, so that a general and a captain and a private would all be in the outfield chasing fly balls together. And it was kind of a unifier, in their downtime of the troops and the morale, because it was obviously a war that we lost up to 800,000 people. It was the most bloody war in American history, and yet this game on the side could create this kind of sense of just sanity. And they also allowed prisoners of war to play baseball on base at this time, and so that prisoners of war kind of would have some fun and be able to kind of just think about something other than war, death, blood, and prison. But there was one moment where they took it too far, where they were in the battlefield and it was a kind of a lull, and they didn't really realize how close the enemy was, and so the Union soldiers lined up and spread out for a game of base on the plain. And all of a sudden, the Confederacy attacks. And so one of the soldiers recalls that day and says, George Putnam says, suddenly there was a scattering of fire, which 3 outfielders caught the brunt, so they're getting shot in the outfield. The center fielder was hit and was captured. Left and right field managed to get back to our lines. The attack was repelled without serious difficulty, but we had lost not only our center fielder, but the only baseball in Alexandria, Texas. And Paul says, look, many of the things that you and I can do are good and fun. There's nothing wrong with a phone. There's nothing wrong with a credit card. There's nothing wrong with a trip. There's nothing wrong with your kids playing sports. There's nothing wrong with going out with friends and having a beer, as long as you're not breaking the law. There's nothing wrong with having an extra cup of coffee and lingering out with a family member catching up. There's nothing wrong with many of the good things. Baseball was a very good thing for many different sides of what they were doing, but there were limits. And there are limits to good things. And if we don't put limits and build margin to our lives, the good things can become deadly to us. Ask doctor after doctor, what killed this person? And I'll just tell you, they tried to do too much. Too much stress, overload. And it got to them. They lost everything. Or they lost their life. So, Barnes & Noble, for example, they've changed this. They've changed it. So this used to be on their website. If you go to this website, it's totally cleaned up, totally changed. But sometimes we get confused about what our mission is. We get entangled in civilian affairs because we get confused about things. So it used to say, our mission, Barnes & Noble, is to operate the best specialty retail business in America, regardless of the product we sell. And then 3 sentences later they said, but to say that our mission exists independent of the product we sell is to me the importance and distinction of being booksellers. Huh? So we are focused on our product or we're not. That's kind of a big deal. Sometimes we have contradictory missions inside of ourselves. I love Jesus. I think he is the best way to live. Honestly, I think that if everyone in the world knew Jesus and followed him, the world would be radically different and radically better. I think family systems would be transformed. But I also really like X, Y, and Z. And some of the things that I might want to do in life and just have as a part of my life and culture clash with the life of Jesus. And if I don't acknowledge that there is a conflict here and I have to work that out, I'm going to look like this slide. I'm going to look like that web page I showed you. I'm just going to be too busy with conflicting things to be able to thrive for God. And so Matthew 28, Jesus has this kind of focus moment. It's like sometimes you just got to sit down and have the define the relationship conversation, which we'll talk about in our dating series next week. You got to have to just sit down and say, what am I about? And Jesus has that moment and he rises from the dead. He gathers together on the hill with his disciples. And here's what happens. This is called the Great Commission. This is Jesus handing forth the goods of, this is your commission. This is what I want you to be about as my followers. The 11 disciples, not counting Judas, who didn't betray Jesus, wasn't there. The 11 disciples went to Galilee to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Do you know that you could follow Jesus faithfully with your doubts? That's awesome news. That means you don't have to be sure that God exists to serve him. You could have a side of you that's like, maybe this whole thing's not true. And still say, but I'm going to live like it is. And I'm going to say, the side of me that believes it, I'm just going to lean into that side and ask God to make my unbelief belief. We're not talking about the pillars of the church. There's actually bricks named after them in heaven, the Bible says. They are not people without doubts. They're staring at the hole. They're staring at Jesus through the holes in his hands. And they're still doubting. That's honesty intended to encourage you that we're not talking about spiritual superheroes. We're talking about being on mission for God. We're talking about normal people with normal doubts who just make a conscious decision to live their life in a way that truly matters. They worshiped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority on heaven and earth has been given to me, therefore go. And I'm adding in because it's a participle in the Greek language, which means he's saying as you go through life, as you're going to your job, as you're studying at your school, as you're at recess, as you're having coffee, as you're on a vacation, as you're living in your neighborhood. That's why we have put a tap where you live. Declare your home to be a lighthouse in your neighborhood. As you're doing life, as you're going, make disciples of all nations. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I can't wait to have our baptism at the church today. We're going to be honoring this command and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. I promise to be with you. But I have work for you. I have a reason that I created you, put you on this planet Earth and it's a mission. And so in other words, you could say that our mission as Christians is going in a way, living in a way that makes disciples, or I like to add makes disciple makers. Because what God tells to me is, my job as a pastor is to equip the saints for ministry, Ephesians 4:12. My job is to take the church and say, I am not just going to be your spiritual shepherd, feeding you stuff every week and having you go home saying, good, I'm glad that Pastor Matt's a pastor. My job is to make you feel like a pastor, that you are a disciple maker. My job is to not just make disciples, so is yours. So my job and yours is to make disciple makers. We want to be a church not just of disciples who follow Jesus, but of disciple makers, of people who know how to connect lost people, wandering people, hurting people, confused people, cluttered lives to Christ. So the sparks can start to fly. If that's all on me, this church caves in. My job is to equip you. It's our job as a church to equip ourselves to do this. So that we, instead of looking like this, instead of having a church where we've got a program for everything and a buffet line, come and get this program if you want it, and then go home, we will feed you. You're like the baby bird, we're the mother bird, we'll chew it up and regurgitate it into your mouth. How's that for an image, by the way? My job is not chew it up and then regurgitate it to you. My job is to teach you how to eat steak. Get your steak knife out. With the A1 sauce aside, we're having filet mignon. This is good stuff now. And let's chew on this together. And then let's teach each other how to feed milk to newborn baby Christians, and how to help people savor the good news of the gospel. That's what we're about. And to do that, and surprise, we decided that, you know what, there's nothing more that describes the gospel than the word surprise. God is so much better than you think. He's so much kinder than we think. He's so much more willing to forgive than we think. He's got so much more power to heal whatever we're carrying or dealing with than we think. He's so much more willing to hear our prayers than we think. He's so much more willing to take time to just be with us and encourage us than we think. He's thinking so much farther out into the future than we think. He's actually more able to use the joys and sorrows of this present moment and mixing it together to create something in the future than we think. He's so much kinder, more gracious and merciful, slower to anger than we think, more abounding in steadfast love than we think. He's a surprise. Our God is a crazy surprise, one after another, day after day. It says in the Bible, these verses are brand new every morning. Once you wake up and open your eyes, but you gotta be kidding me. Are you serious, God? Today again you're gonna do this? You're gonna choose to love me and forgive me and bear with me again today. It wasn't like yesterday's choice counts. You're gonna just do it again today. So we want to be that surprise to a world in need. We don't just want to hear the surprise every Sunday and go home thinking that's good stuff. We very carefully chose the word be there because I want you to be surprising people on mission for God. I want people at your homes and in your neighborhoods and in your workplaces who intersect you on one level or another of your life and think there's something different about so-and-so. And I just want to know more about it. I want you living, and my dream would be that we would all live with such a laser-like focus on going through our lives, doing what we do, but doing it with a particular vantage point, doing it with a mission for God. That surprise, we just keep it real simple. That means we don't have a buffet line of programs. People always ask me, when's this or when's that? We don't do that. Here's what we do. We have Sunday gatherings where we gather as a church. It's not church, it's a gathering of the church. So then it goes out and makes a difference to everybody. And we have DNA groups. They get together every week and do life together and do discipleship together and talk about how to follow Jesus together. And those DNA groups are moving together in what's called missional communities, where they own and embrace a cause in the community and just take it on for God. And they just do life together, but are on mission as a primary motive need. And in the future, we believe that Surprise is called to be a church within 3-4 years that has over 1,000 partners, kind of our version of members on multiple campuses, dozens and dozens of missional communities that own all the dark corners of our city, that own different neighborhoods that are specifically feeling like we are living out the Great Commission in this way, in this place. And so next weekend, we're going to talk about that at the church. We're going to talk about what these DNA groups really like to be in. And could that be for me? Or how can I take my DNA group to the next level? We're going to talk about what does it look like to be a Surprise church in this city, but what's it going to look like in the future when we think about planting new campuses? And what kind of missional community could I be a part of? What's my passion? In your bulletin, we've noted that there's a website where we're asking everybody to go on and take the passions audit. This is how we're going to help you take a sense of what has God put on my heart to do? How has God uniquely called me to make a difference? So if you want to circle that on your sermon note insert today, or jot this down, DNA groups, all the way down to the bottom of the page, put passions audit. And then you're going to be cued. Just say, here's what I believe God has put on my heart. Here's what my heart breaks for in the city. Here's a part of this city or a neighborhood or a neighborhood that needs good news. And then we're going to take those and then we're going to start actually creating environments where you can live out that plan. I'm going to end with this. I'll invite the band back up. We're going to write a mission statement this week. That's my homework for you. Think of it as something that we need to fit on Twitter. If you don't know what Twitter is, let's just skip that. Make this an enduring purpose for a living that captures your God-given passions. Something like this. Now, if you think of mission, Justin, would you stand up? Just stand on that white line right there. I should have someone with long flowing hair to do this, but this will be fine. Now, if I wanted to blow on Justin, this is fine. If I wanted to be on mission, but I'm all over the place with my life, I could just kind of like live and kind of like, did you feel that? Maybe you smelled that, I don't know. I can kind of just live with air, everything is kind of energy, air floating away from me. But if I have a mission, if you go and take the passions on it and you say, I'm gonna try to really zero in on how God's called me to live and who He's called me to bless. It's kind of like taking all that energy and all that passion and focusing it like a laser beam. Now, you may or may not feel this, but Justin probably will. Okay? I wanted to put a burning piece of paper in here and have like a smoke coming out, so it's actually a ring of air that's going to come at you. Justin, raise your hand when you feel this. All right? Tell me you felt that. All right, one more time. Okay, next Sunday I'm going to bring a gigantic box. I'm going to knock you over. Right. Okay, you felt it. So it's like that. Sit down. You were no help to me at all. I need someone shorter, evidently, next time. But you get my idea, and the idea is that when you live with emotion, you live with a laser-like, when you live with a mission, you live with a laser-like focus on a particular passion that should be able to make a very significant impact in a very specific area, that if you don't have that focus, you look more like MSN and Google, and you miss out. Now let's pray. Let's stand and pray. Jesus, help us not to miss out. I pray that everyone here leaves not just cognizant of the truth that we talked about today, but also willing to take that first step, take the passion out of it, take a first step, go on there and write a mission statement for their life that might be changed over time, might get adapted or redacted or redrafted, but it represents the first step to being on mission, claiming the unique purpose that you have us in this world. Because God, we don't just want to go to work in the mornings. We don't just want to raise our kids and send them to college. We don't just want to go to bed every night and wake up the next morning and say, oh, it's time to do it all over again. We want our lives to go somewhere. We want our lives to mean something. And if we don't have a mission from the living God that created us, we can never, ever do it. Give us your power to live on mission for you in Jesus' name.